So Envirothon was formerly known as the Enviro Olympics, and hopefully you'll be able to see why. So Envirothon is an environmental and natural resources conservation, problem solving, leadership experience, and academic competition for high school students, grades 9 to 12, across Canada, the USA, China, and Singapore. And Envirothon incorporates STEM principles, hands-on learning, and outdoor field experiences to foster student learning. Students are challenged to develop critical thinking skills to create innovative solutions to the complex local and global environmental and natural resource issues facing our world today. It's been in Alberta since 1997, and interestingly enough, it's the only Envirothon program in Western Canada. So the next closest program is in Manitoba. We have had, Heather can correct me if I'm wrong during the Q&A, but we've had teams compete from Saskatchewan and I think Northwest Territories in the past, but they don't have their own Envirothon programs. So again, game-changing funds sponsored by West Fraser through FRIP, and our first project was from 2022 to 2025, ended this year. And actually this year, West Fraser signed on to sponsor us for another 10 years. And so they are now the sole sponsor of our provincial program, which allows us to support, basically host the provincial competition, but also support Team Alberta as they move on to compete at the international competition. And West Fraser, along with these other 3 forestry companies, Canfor, Foothills Forest Products, and Weyerhaeuser, stepped up in a really big way to provide funding for the NCF-Envirothon, which is the International Envirothon. And NCF stands for the National Conservation Foundation. And we really would not have been able to host this international competition without these folks stepping up. And Alberta has never hosted before, and I don't think we will ever host again, but it was a lovely experience and we did an amazing job and it was so much work. So the annual theme, I mentioned, or I showed, the pillars of Envirothon are forestry, aquatic ecology, soils and land use, wildlife, and then there's a changing annual theme. So we call it the current environmental issue. And as the host for the 2025, we were able to determine what the current environmental issue would be. And so we incorporated Indigenous Knowledge Systems and traditional land stewardship in our current issue. And so because of that, we asked an Indigenous artist that I knew from other work, Mackenzie Brown. I don't know if any of you are familiar with her, but she created this beautiful logo for us that includes all of the pillars of Envirothon and our desire to use a two-eyed seeing approach. So the logo on the left, we actually have the good fortune of year after year working with one of the Government of Alberta's graphic designers, and he creates our annual provincial logo. And that is the logo he created for us for 2025. And then on the right is the logo that Mac Brown created for us for the international. And you can see our theme there, Roots and Resiliency, Fostering Forest Stewardship in a Canopy of Change. So I'm not going to read out each person's name and their specific roles on the Alberta Host Committee, but my point here is that something of this magnitude does not happen overnight, nor does it happen without an entire team of dedicated folks committing their time and good energy to it. This slide basically lists out our Alberta Host Committee with the assistance of our event planners and our bookkeeper. And though some of us had the support from our employers to sit on the Alberta board, most of us also spent hundreds of additional volunteer hours over the past 1.5 to 2 years making this international event happen. And we did not account for that in the initial FRIA project. We were able to keep a small, I would say, I don't know, 3% maybe of the project at the end as a project management and administration fee, with funds that were left at the very end. But it was a difficult thing only because I didn't have kind of an accurate budget to go on from the beginning. So it made it a bit challenging to know whether we were going to actually have enough money or not. This was our host location, Mount Royal University in Calgary. For any of you that have been to that campus, it's kind of has a small town feel, rather than a big city university, where the campus is spread across, you know, a really big space. This allowed us to kind of do what we needed to do and stay for the most part within a few buildings, have all of the activities within a few buildings, because it really is challenging the more buildings that you add to the competition to have a bunch of strangers trying to figure out where they're supposed to be going. But this was our home for 10 days over a period of July 2025. And we all stayed in dorm rooms. MRU had 4 apartment buildings, and that's where the students and teacher advisors stayed in the West Residence apartment complex. And then the Alberta Host Committee, the NCF Operating Committee, some of the other guests that were part of the event, they stayed in kind of these West Residence townhouses. The nice thing about MRU was it was all single occupancy rooms, so everybody just had a single bed and a private space, and then shared a bathroom with potentially 1 or more people. But this was our home. And it was a very busy schedule. NCF-Envirothon has a kind of a really set event schedule that they ask the hosts to kind of follow. And so a lot of this was out of our control, but my point in putting this slide in is just, it was very structured and there was a lot going on. So the logistics of this event were kind of crazy. So from this kind of basic schedule, you can see how the week was laid out. We moved into this a little bit more detailed schedule, and I think Heather and Andre spent quite a bit of time creating this beautiful event guide for us. And it was incredible. From this kind of level of detail, we then went into like the event planners made a minute by minute production schedule of who needed to be where and when and why and how things were going to get done. It really was insane. I kind of still, it boggles my mind, the spreadsheets and some of the stuff that needed to be considered for this event. On Saturday before the event started, because the event started on Sunday, we wanted to start off in a good way, and we did that by being together in ceremony. So we did a pipe ceremony together, and it was important to me that we do this. We were bringing together 2 groups of people to oversee an event with potentially lifelong implications, and I felt it was my responsibility to take the time to ground us in ceremony and reinforce our good intentions with pure hearts. This is something that's missing in colonial systems that I think is very important. And so pictured here are it's not everybody, but it's a lot of us. And so, the Alberta Host Committee, the NCF Operating Committee, the staff, and our event planners, our cultural advisors, and all with the Wesley family. So sitting on the bench is the Wesley family. Elder Barry Wesley was very important in helping us plan our event, and that's his family there. And so we did pipe ceremony together, and I think it was a really good way to start us off. On Sunday was our registration. The teams all registered during the day, and then we opened up in this beautiful space, Bella Concert Hall, And it's much like the Olympics. So each team has a team captain that walks their flag in from their state or their province or their country, in China's case. And they walk their flag in. The flags all remain on stage. And we had some Indigenous performances. And it was really an absolutely incredible way to wish everyone the warmest welcome to Alberta. It's one of the highlights for me of the week for sure. Training day was Monday, and we were at Jumping Pound Demonstration Forest, if any of you have been there. Also an amazing space. This day, we had the option to do either 3 or 5 training presentations. And so we chose 3 90-minute presentations instead of 5 60-minute presentations. So students were all together for the current environmental issue because, like I said, it was incorporating Indigenous knowledge systems. We had Elder Barry speaking to all of the students. And then in the afternoon, they split up and went to 2 other training stations. We were very lucky to have the assistance of the Calgary-based Jiffer crew. Over the weekend, they went out to the site and made sure that there were no hazard trees and actually set up a rope for students to be safe near the river, the creek there. And then they just helped us from morning till night on the day of. And so they were really great. And we ended the day with a mandatory study session. And because it's an academic competition, you can imagine that all of the students were there, even past the first hour is mandatory and the second hour is optional. A lot of them are there right until the end. And that's really their opportunity to share what they learned during the day with the other members of their team and their teacher advisor. Testing day, we transported the students again by school bus to a different off-site field location. And unfortunately, it poured rain all day, so we had to pivot. And instead of having the stations outside, we had most of them in the buildings that were on site, except for the forestry station we left outside. The students needed to write 1 field test for each pillar, and they do that as a team. However, we didn't print the exams on Write in the Rain paper. So like I said, they needed to stay dry. And so we did what we needed to do. And they were still smiling at the end, so it's fine. We could read all the answers on the exam, so it worked. And we ended the day, I don't have pictured here, but we ended the day with a tree cookie art activity and a mini round dance, which was amazing. Day 3, our educational fun day in Banff National Park. Every single person that came to this event wanted to go to Banff, and so we made that happen. We transported 500 plus folks by coach charter buses to Sunshine Meadows, followed by 2 hours in Banff town site for shopping. So you can see here some of the teams out at the platform viewing deck. This was really exciting for some of these kids that have never been in a gondola or up a chairlift. To go to Sunshine Meadows was really great. We didn't have a lot of time there, but it was worth it. And we ended the day just minutes from downtown Banff at a private venue called, I think now it's called Banff Park Ranch. It's basically 2 big roundhouse buildings, and they hosted our supper there with a big fire in the middle. We had, they had a really lovely outdoor space, so there was lots of time to just sit and kind of get to know each other and spend time playing games or talking or dancing. We had that green, the green lawn space for outdoor games like horseshoes and Jenga and beanbag toss and frisbee. And then we had a band inside teaching us a line dance, which randomly got repeated throughout the rest of the week by folks, which was cute. And you can see here another picture with the burrowing owl. So we had 5 birds of prey brought in from a regional wildlife rehab society, and we got to see, and some folks got to hold, either a burrowing owl or a great horned owl, which is our provincial bird. We also got to have a golden eagle and a merlin on site, so that was really neat to have that and see those birds up close. Now, the oral presentation. So a complex Alberta-specific scenario was created and presented to the teams on the morning of July 24th, and each team was then sequestered in a separate classroom for 6 hours to come up with their solution to the problem. Students were only able to use resources that were provided to them, and they had no cell phones or access to the internet, and any speaking notes that they wanted to have during the presentation needed to be completed within that time frame. So on the picture on the right, they were randomly picked a presentation time slot when they registered, and that's when they did their presentation. So the following morning on July 25th, each team was given 15 minutes to present their solution to a panel of judges, followed by a 5-minute Q&A, and each student needed to participate. The judging rubric, I said, was insane. So it's like a lot of detail in that judging rubric, and you can ask Nicole Marburg about that if you like, because she was one of our judges. So the NCF scoring committee then combined the oral presentation scores with the field test station scores, and the overall top 3 teams then presented in front of the entire group to a new VIP panel of judges to determine their final ranking. And that was the panel that Nicole sat on, was the VIP panel. So our college and career fair happened kind of at the same time as the oral presentation. So once students were done their presentations, they were encouraged to go through the college and career fair. And this is a really special part of Envirothon, and one of the things that I think is really important that we continue. So this is an opportunity for universities, colleges, employers, and we had several Alberta ministries there to showcase local opportunities for students to come to Alberta to pursue post-secondary education and or employment in the environmental and natural resource sectors. And I think maybe many of you on this webinar will recognize Forest from Work Wild. He's always fantastic. And yeah, it was just really great to have these folks. And I know I had a lot of good conversations with students at this fair, and I hope that we got some good things happening out of that. And then Friday evening, we had the award ceremony. So Friday afternoon, the top 3 teams presented. We had a keynote speaker, and then Friday evening was the award ceremony. We had the top 10 teams receive scholarship money and a team award. The top team in each pillar received scholarship money and a team award. And then the top 3 teams received scholarship money and individual awards. And interestingly enough, these awards were made by a Calgary-based company that recycles chopsticks. So our vision for the future for Envirothon, 2027 marks our 30th year in Alberta. So we're looking for a new location to host our provincial event, ideally for a 3 or 4 year term. And we're currently working on an RFP for that. We'd like to expand the geographic scope and have new schools participating. And by having a lot of our board better understand the international competition, we're hoping and striving to be a better support for preparing Team Alberta to compete at the next level. And this good group of folks are the majority of our Alberta Host Committee, with some of our very dedicated volunteers. And when I say dedicated, I'm talking 18 to 20-hour long days. Like, some of these folks were in it with us. It was crazy. So I'm going to end with a call to action. Both of these programs expose youth to different environmental disciplines, post-secondary options, careers, outdoor experiences, leadership opportunities, and more. We are supporting youth in Alberta and, I would say, beyond. And if this presentation inspires you to get involved in any way, I would just encourage you to please reach out by email. I've provided both the Hinton Owls email there, as well as Alberta Envirothon's email. If you are interested and not near Hinton, feel free to reach out to the Alberta Junior Forest Warden Club, and they will put you in touch with a JFW club near you. And I've included here both websites for you to check out. This picture here on the right is one that just really warms my heart. This is why I do what I do. I just love bringing kids out for different experiences. And pictured here are folks from our Hinton Owls, junior forest wardens. We went out to Mackenzie Creek, where I think it was another FRIA project, actually. You guys had done some trail restoration along Mackenzie Creek, which is a bull trout spawning stream. And so we went out with folks from GOA Forestry and Parks, GOA Environment and Protected Areas, Hinton's West Fraser staff, and Freshwater Conservation Canada. And we built a willow wattle fence together along the stream bank and did some willow cuttings in other places. But this is all what I love to do.